Everyone's in Canberra today. Let's cross back to Canberra and catch up with the National Farmers Federation's Tony Mahar. Thanks for joining us, Tony. Pretty keen to get your thoughts first up. I don't know whether you were able to see it, but we spoke to Jeff Kennett just over an hour ago, and we're talking to him about governments not making decisions, putting things out to review these days. And I got him on the dams issue, and he was very forward-leaning on this, saying the country needs a national water strategy. We should be building massive amounts of water storage and pipeline infrastructure so we can store the resources, shift it around as much as possible, obviously get through droughts as best we can, but also increase our agricultural produce. Anne Ruston says a lot of this is underway already. What do you think about what governments, this one and previous governments, have done, state and federal, in order to do more, to organise and make the most of our water resources?
Yeah, thanks, Chris. It's obviously a pretty critical issue, and I've been talking to farmers for a long time now about the capability that we've got in terms of water storages and preparing for droughts. And you know, it's sometimes challenging and a bit dangerous to make decisions when you're in the midst of a crisis, of which we are in the current drought. But I do think most people would say we should have built more dams, you know, have more water infrastructure for the driest continent on Earth, and how much importance agriculture is to rural and regional Australia. I think, generally speaking, most people would say we haven't prepared enough. So that's successive governments over probably, 100 years. But we do need more infrastructure. We do need more dams. And I know the government has got a national water initiative to actually look into that. And the announcements over the weekend about Dungowan Dam and Wyangla Dam are a really good step. Of course, we know that it's a Commonwealth state issue, and we've got to contend with that, though.
Yeah, all of that's underway, and while everybody would agree that all sides of politics have been tardy on this over the years, the government is pressing ahead and really talking about trying to get dam projects up now. Do you think all that is adequate, or do you think that there is something in Jeff Kennett's proposal that we really need to think big? There needs to be some sort of grand national plan that looks to coordinate this and perhaps draft up a water infrastructure plan that gazes decades down the path.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think we have to be long-term thinking around this. I mean, someone asked me the other day, if you had an endless bucket of money, what would you do? And I mean, those are fanciful sort of conversations, but you think about the amount of rainfall that falls in northern Australia and the amount of rainfall that falls in southern Australia. Of course, you'd love to capture that and somehow get it to southern Australia, but really, I mean, these are more than just deep pockets, long-term thinking. That is sort of not fanciful thinking, but it'd be nice to do that sort of thing, and it just takes so many dollars and billions of dollars in long-term thinking. It'd be great if we could do it.
Some of it is fanciful, of course. Some people talk about this as if you build a dam in Cape York and the water just flows downhill to where you need it, whereas, of course, the construction costs and the pumping and the like that you may need is prohibitive. Now, we speak to you about...
Unfortunately, the technicalities of those things get in the way sometimes, Chris. It would be great, but the costs and the engineering and the infrastructure, yeah, is just mind-blowing. But, gee, I'd love to do it if we were ever able to.
Well, no doubt, though, there are practical plans. We know about the Bradfield scheme, but also, I mean, you'd only have to look at the Snowy Mountain scheme, of course, to see how rivers that used to flow east into the ocean have been turned into massive storage capacity and turning water inland for irrigation. So there is potential there. Now, we're talking about this on a day that you're issuing a report on behalf of the National Farmers Federation, where you've looked at a whole lot of issues you want governments to tackle in order to boost agricultural production in this country. And, of course, one of the issues you focused on very intently there is energy. How big a hindrance is energy costs and energy availability when it comes to agricultural production?
Yeah, look, it's a large cost, and agriculture is an export-orientated industry. Chris, we export about 2/3 of what we produce to, global consumers. And I was lucky enough to travel with the agriculture minister earlier this year to countries like Japan, Korea and Vietnam, and to see the demand over there for Australian produce is just so inspiring and so encouraging. So we need to be, the point around that is that we need to be as globally competitive as we can. Energy costs can be a large proportion of the overall input costs for agriculture, whether you're producing pork or whether you're horticulture or whether you're in the dairy sector or in fact in irrigation, pumping costs. So there are these costs that we need to constantly look at reducing and becoming more efficient. Our roadmap has a plan to grow the agriculture industry by an extra $40 billion in the next 12 to 15 years. And that's what we're reporting against today, 12 months into a 12-year journey. So we've given a few report card type of scenarios. And one thing that we do look forward to working with the government on is a national energy policy that can help agriculture remain globally competitive.
Well, you're saying the government doesn't have an energy policy. Of course, we know the history of the National Energy Guarantee was sort of punted in the second half of last year. Scott Morrison and Angus Taylor say they're very focused on getting reliable energy and getting prices down, supporting coal-fired power if the need be. What are you looking for when you say you need or you want the federal government to deliver a national energy policy?
Yeah, look, our policy, Chris, is around affordability, reliability and sustainability. We're technology agnostic, so on energy. And I know the government and Minister Taylor has put in place measures that will hopefully bring down energy prices for consumers and businesses. And that's what we need to build on, to have a national approach that looks at affordability, reliability and sustainability. So yes, reducing energy costs to households and to businesses will be a good thing. And we need to look at things like renewable energy. And in our report that we've released today, there is examples of that around the country. But one particular example is around Longreach, where there's 54,000 photovoltaic solar panels that could potentially provide renewable energy for up to 5,000 homes. Now, Longreach, I think, has about 3,500 people in it. So that could potentially take Longreach off the grid and then be entirely energy self-sufficient. And that benefits farmers and it benefits rural and regional Australia. But they're the sorts of things that industry is doing. And I think what we're looking for is a collaborative strategy with government to make sure that that continues and we continue to get that balance right between affordability and reliability.
Yeah, but why is Longreach doing that? I mean, obviously, it's expensive to put in all those solar panels and then you'll need massive amounts of storage if it's going to be sustainable. These are all additional costs. So why aren't we just focusing on cheap energy in this country?
Well, I mean, again, we've got to get the balance right. I mean, there is significant cost, $30 million or more, and it's actually sitting on a sheep and cattle farm, or used to be sheep and cattle farm in Longreach. So this energy policy is incredibly complex. We know that the balances that you've got to achieve between reliability, affordability, the network costs, the storage costs, so they're huge. And that's what we've flagged 12 months into a 12-year journey for us is that we want to work with the government on how that's going to happen. And ultimately, what's in it for us is to drive the future of the agriculture industry around lowering our costs and being more competitive on the global stage.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining us, Tony. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Chris.